Hello everyone, and welcome to Empowering the Conscious Business Evolution Talk with me, Antonina Manev, for some fresh, thought-provoking and liberating conversations about inspiring the sparks of innovation and evolution, and growing a bigger and a wider world of ethically successful and consciously evolving business environment. For those who tune in for the first time, I'm the founder of Visions Inspire Strategic Business Growth Consultancy. As a business strategist, my focus is on turning visions into profitable businesses, be it for startups or established businesses. So in my area of work, evolving the business consciousness is a key element. You can find out more about my inspiring work by visiting the website www.visionsinspire.com. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel or like my Facebook page or connect on LinkedIn with me. Business owners work with me, looking to increase usually their business cash flow and profits and create a secure financial future so they fully enjoy a greater lifestyle and balance. However, along the way, the main obstacle appears to be the uncomfortable mindset of conformity, which accepts limitations in business making and development, or even growing in order to fit in an old custom conventional framework of business making that holds them back, and all that at the expense of their true identity. But how we even start to break up these frames? Well, we'll have to try. In my interviews, video or audio, I will be introducing you to exceptional business leaders, owners, and creators who have reached great success in what they do, not because they worked hard to fit in, but by challenging the status quo and constantly innovating themselves and their businesses, by searching back to their authentic roots to follow the person-business environment connection, and by taking approaches of consciously evolving to align with a higher social and earth value through their creativity, identity, and co-creative forward thinking. So be prepared, all my guests have left valuable tips and inspirational words of wisdom for you to take and do your best to outshine the conventional and grow yourself and business aligned with higher values. All their interviews are playing on the Visions Inspire YouTube podcast channel. Happy listening and happy learning and growing. Hello everyone, hello peeps, and welcome to Empowering the Conscious Business Evolution with me, Antonina. And today I brought to you the beautiful, wonderful Shelly Brown. Hello, Shelly.
Hi, so happy to be here.
So guys, just to let you know, Shelly Brown, she is the belonging expert. She is an amazing mindfulness educator and speaker, well known as the author of Weird Girl Adventures, which is on Amazon, which is in WH Smith. Everyone can buy it here in the EU. Go and get it. It's a collection of essays, but presented in such a beautiful way that everyone connects with it, because we all have that need to be educated on being weird and loving ourselves. So everyone, welcome Shelly Brown,
Thank you.
belonging expert with the weird method.
That's right. I am happy to be here. And I don't think that people need to explore how to be weird, because I think that everybody is weird, different, weird, but weird. And by the way, weird means odd, or fantastic, strange or extraordinary. So it's interesting because it has that sort of polarity with the definition. And when we get judged as weird, it's oftentimes for something that is considered maybe something that's not put in a good light or seen as negative. But when we realize that the things that we are labeled weird about, when we realize that those are oftentimes the way that we serve other people, then we can take that weird that feels like this uncomfortable hot sweater and put it into a cape in service of others. So
like a power pose, like a cape, like a Superman,
right.
superpower cape.
Superpower. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing, because we
Yeah.
all, in our different periods of life, quite often we feel not belonging
Yes.
and not part of it, and it can be painful, and I've been through that, and I'm sure that everyone in certain
Everyone.
stage of their life has felt that and can relate to other people's similar experiences. Shelley, can you please tell our viewers and me, I just want to learn more about, how did you get to teaching organizations how to enhance their hearts for belonging?
Sure, sure. So my background is in the corporate world. I started out in the hospitality industry. I was a clay door concierge, and it was great. It was a perfect job for somebody who just wanted to make friends with everybody, because that's what a concierge does. You're a professional friend and it's awesome. Well, I was young and I decided that I wanted to continue to expand my career and do different things. And so I went into sales. I did a little bit of meeting planning, event planning, and then I went into sales, and then I went into technology sales. And as my responsibilities grew, so did the ability to collect data and really make people's identity about performance. And so through my career history, the more I grew, the more data, KPIs, metrics, performance metrics kind of stole my humanity from me. And literally after what the Rolling Stones referred to as my 19th nervous breakdown, I left the corporate world because I just felt like my humanity was stolen, and all that mattered was performance, 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 and metrics. And it was really stressful, and it trickled down to the people that I led, right? So if I am measured only by performance, then of course that pressure is going to trickle down. And it trickles down from C-level all the way down through, and it's very dehumanizing. And so that's something that's happening a lot with the pandemic, is people want a different way to be measured. But back to your question, I started studying mindfulness, and I said, I really, really need to figure out a way to introduce this to people that may be skeptical, like that may not be sort of what we call woo-woo. That it was so important for me to make it approachable, make it accessible, and demystify it for folks. So I came up with a curriculum called Rockstar Mindfulness, and I used rock music to help people understand that what we are doing is not all about calm. It's about becoming, am I allowed to say ass?
Yes.
It's about becoming a badass of our awareness, because when we can become the driver of our awareness, then we have the ability to choose. And so how that moves into the belonging space is part of our sense of belonging is really our own responsibility. And that means that we need to notice the narratives and the stories that we tell ourselves that separate us from others. Because if we walk into a situation where we have these stories and narratives and false thoughts that aren't true about ourselves in conjunction with other people, then we separate ourselves, we're not present, and we don't connect. So also the narrative that we tell ourselves, it's also about the narrative, stories, biases about other people that prevent us from being present and prevent us from being curious about understanding and really, really listening to other people's perspectives and points of views and being open. So that is really how it all kind of translates into taking some of the self-awareness and mindfulness framework to the world of belonging and talking about how we can amplify the experience for others.
It's amazing because I've never made that connection, that path, how to, because I always ask the questions, okay, if I feel disconnected or if I feel not connected to these people, how can I do that? For example, rather than sitting there and feeling that I'm not liked, for example, and I'm not talking just about me, I'm talking about the majority of people. Rather than sitting there thinking, engage in some way, listen. And I loved that path that you just described.
I really think that in order to amplify the experience for others, we need to sense it for ourselves. And a lot of people who are talking about belonging in the corporate space, or actually any space, talk so much about the one-way direction of it. How do we make people feel like they belong? We've got to make people feel like they belong. They don't feel like they belong. And I think that it's an ecosystem. And that's hard for people to think that they also have, that everybody has a responsibility in the ecosystem of belonging. And I'm not saying that in some cases, I do believe in creating psychological safety. I do believe that leaders are responsible for amplifying the experience of belonging. But when you have, let's say, people sort of in middle management who got that pressure to produce and, drive goals and drive revenues, the self-awareness piece can sort of go by the wayside.
Yeah.
And then you're not able to amplify the experience of belonging because you're not even present. You're not even self-aware.
I totally agree with you. And it's a personal experience because my background is finance and tax. I became the first female tax manager for one of the top 50s in the UK. That's my corporate part of my life. And I do relate to what you've just said because I was measured on performance. I was measured on billable hours and, profit chunks out of your billable hours. What is profit, how much profit you have made. And I had to monitor and train my associates and my assistants to do that as well. So I was demanding, and suddenly my personality in that stage was very directive in a way, and I hated it. Shelley, I hated myself because that wasn't me. And it makes you feel dirty. It makes you feel guilty and dirty and not you. And at the same time, leadership tells you, well done, keep going. And that's where the disconnection happens, because you're there in the middle. You don't like yourself because you're not, the people's person anymore, but your values are completely at that point disconnected from whatever leadership or higher management requires from you. And that was the reason why I actually left.
Because it wasn't aligned with who you are and your values. No. And there has to be a balance between human beings and performance. There's got to be the balance there. And that's, I think, the biggest issue with, this whole great resignation is there isn't a balance. If work was such a great place to go to and be, that yes, people want flexibility, mothers who have young children, and flexibility is important. But if it was so great, that we wouldn't be having all these problems, and people want that balance. But I also think that what I have to say is a little controversial, because we do need to own a little bit of our part. We expect like companies to be our parent, our therapist, our well-being. And it's a yes, and they do have that responsibility to give us psychological safety, to give us tools for well-being. But we also, the individual has a part to play in it. And if you're going in expecting the proverbial them to do all of it, and you're not taking responsibility yourself, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're going to say this culture sucks, and you're going to keep on trying to find the thing that's going to fix you if you're not willing to take a part.
That's brilliant, because that's what was going to be one of my questions to you. What do you want to do when they do feel different, not belonging, but needing the job? And what mechanism one can use to not feel hurt about that? That was going to be one of my questions, and you just answered it perfectly. Take responsibility. Both sides work together.
Yeah, the organization really needs to provide the tools, and the individual's responsibility is to use them.
And between the individual and the organization comes you and your method.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about a little bit that method.
About weird.
Oh, yeah, it is called Weird. I get it. I get it. Your book is called Weird Girl Adventures. I did read a little snippets of it, and I love it.
The book is sort of everybody's stories. It's myriad stories of what I did to try to fit in, whether it was, run ultra marathons, or, the different things that we do to try to fit in, whether it's our hair color. It just not all about external, but all different ways that we try to fit in. And so when people read it, it's not about, oh my gosh, Shelley did this. It's they self-reflect in their own stories about, I remember when I did this, or this happened to me. So it kind of runs the gamut from hilarious to tragic, but it's all the human experience. And my thing is, like I said, I think we're all weird, different, weird, but weird. And the thoughts and the feelings that we believe separate us are actually our greatest connection to others. And that's the premise of the weird framework that I use when I speak. It's welcoming, engaging, integrating, risk-taking, and dynamic. So I took the word weird and I broke it down into that acronym. And the weird process for amplifying the experience of belonging is, if I'm talking to leadership, it's welcoming, taking the principles of hospitality into your workplace. And it could be as small as, how are we extending orientation beyond 3 months to make people continuously feel welcomed? Are we welcoming not just, different types of people and different gender identities and things like that, but are we doing the smallest things, like asking people, saying hello to people and being present for them when we walk past them, or, in an online environment, are you standing people up for a meeting that you've scheduled and they're just sitting there waiting for you and you've just blown them off, So it's principles of being hospitable to the people that work for us, right? And then engaging. I think engaging, people use the word engagement all the time, but engaging to amplify belonging is, am I present? I'm on this Zoom, but I'm over here in my brain because I'm thinking about my quarterly revenue goals, and I'm not listening to you because you're not in front of me, but you're on Zoom, or maybe you are in front of me. Either way, it's really easy to see if somebody's really, really being present to listen to somebody else, right? So the engaging with my full presence in that moment is extraordinarily important for amplifying the experience of belonging, right?
Totally.
And then integration, the whole human, right? So the people that we're with, they're a whole human being. They're physical, emotional, and spiritual. They're a whole human. So am I looking at the person as a whole, or am I looking at them as a KPI, as their ability just to perform? How am I integrating the whole human person with their personality, with their preferences and their perspectives? And then the R is risk taking. What is the risk I'm taking to show up as a leader who's vulnerable, who says, I don't know, who shows up in my whole humanity? And what's the risk I'm taking if I don't?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What's the cost? What's the cost of not showing up as myself? Not just for me, but for the people that I serve, because servant leadership, right? And then the D is dynamic. So creating a dynamic culture. Things move, they shift, they change, they're fluid. And being dynamic, when you think about it, it's energy. So it is creating a culture of a dynamic culture, a fluid culture. And being a dynamic human being is always a great way to attract people to you, right? So that's a weird framework that I use when I talk to leadership about amplifying the experience. I use that same acronym though for individuals as well. Am I welcoming the thoughts that I have? And I'll make this brief. Am I resisting? Because we're human beings, we think. So if we're in resistance, that is the opposite of welcoming, right? Engaging. Am I engaging with my full self? Am I giving myself permission to go for it, right? And am I integrating? Am I showing up as my whole human being with all my vulnerabilities, insecurities, whatever? I mean, in the context of work, right? And then risk taking. What is the cost to me when I am not allowing myself to be in alignment with who I am? And then dynamic. Showing up as who I am is going to draw people to me. So that's the weird framework in a nutshell. And I know that was long, Antonina.
No, it wasn't long. It was it was very, very, very interesting. And I love the way you have broken it down, and I love the way you presented the connections. So, gosh, I can't wait to listen to your TEDx talk.
Thank you. That one's a little bit more on the personal side. It's called What If Weird Isn't Weird?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a fun talk. It's a joyful talk. It starts out with something everybody can relate to, a place where I was judged and labeled. And then I asked the audience if they can remember that pivotal moment when they were judged or labeled and what that felt like.
Oh gosh. Everyone has those memories because we were labeled as kids in school, right? By friends, by family members.
I get it.
Yeah, open that dynamic. It goes everywhere.
And the point is, belonging is a felt experience. It's not a strategy. Yeah, so the process that I talk about is really a practice. It's a continuous practice. It's not a process where okay, I'm done. It's a self-awareness practice for everybody.
But then on personal level, why do you think some people have a greater need to belong and others don't? Because that comes from the need as well. The intensity comes from the need. So, okay, you have an answer. You're smiling, you're nodding. You've got an answer already.
Well, human beings, we need to belong. It is a fundamental need. And so when we talk about that feeling of that truest sense of belonging, we either feel it or we don't. And I don't know, maybe, you know, part of my theory of, to answer your question, is really sort of part theory, and part of that theory has to do with, again, what we started talking about, is the narratives and the stories that we tell ourselves can cause us to feel like we don't belong.
Mm.
And when we don't feel like we belong and we walk into a situation that ignites fear or a sense of insecurity or a sense of doubt about ourselves, then we're living in our own mind, and we're not present. So the belonging could actually be there, but we're almost putting a roadblock
Yeah.
because of the stuff that's going on in our heads. So it's critical that we notice how our minds are making meaning. Because if we notice that, then we can be like, is it true? Is it real? Do I have to believe this? Maybe it's just going to pass. But then there's also, you know, there's real issues with other people making us feel like we don't belong as well, because they aren't being welcoming, and they are judging, and they are putting up their roadblocks, their biases. So instead of being open and curious and wanting to amplify belonging for other people, they don't. And it's because they lack curiosity and they lack that openness because of the stuff in their own heads. But I think we all need to belong. And I think a greater sense of that need may come from our own insecurities about ourselves.
Yeah. And the problem of the people who are making us not feeling that we belong is their insecurities, in their deficiencies, and
Right.
not ours.
Right. And willingness and unwillingness to really be open and to really be curious and to really, really listen, ask questions, and listen and ask questions and listen to understand and be open.
So what are the type of organizations, okay, because some organizations, they're dumb, some organizations are totally blind, other organizations are more aware, and the same is with people. So what are the types of organizations that and people and their age groups that are becoming aware and reaching out to ask support to overcome that impairedness, if you like,
Sure.
imperfection?
I honestly have to say that it's such a critical topic right now coming out of the pandemic. And so belonging in the corporate world, there's people that have, you know, DE and I titles that are now adding the word belonging to that title, because companies in the States, and I imagine everywhere, are losing people, and they're finding that a big part of the equation is, how do we make our people belong? So it's the corporate world, but it's also education too. A lot of kids are coming back to school, and it's hard to be in a transitional environment. It's hard to be in a new environment. And so it doesn't matter. It's kids, it's corporate, it's organizations, because when people feel like they belong, they show up at their best. It's good personally, it's good organizationally. It totally matters for well-being, and well-being matters no matter where you are. So it's really in all sectors that people are really starting to focus on this, and it doesn't matter what age.
And then when you think about, you know, we're talking about the corporate world, the businesses, the leadership, and then the other side, the employees, which are maybe aged 20, between 20 and 50, and they're experiencing all this. But the leaders, of course, the leaders age group is maybe 30 to 50, 60, 70, I don't know, maybe very old dinosaurs live there somewhere. Is it time to start educating the kindergarten age children about mindfulness.
Absolutely.
Because there you go.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Give me 5. Give me 5. Yeah. Because this is how, as human race, we need to evolve, to be more present, to be more mindful about everything that's going on around us, and align our feelings and emotions and reactions with a conscientious mind.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and I'll add to that, because to me, mindfulness is the absolute foundation for self-awareness. And self-awareness means that you know how you're being, and you know if you're in alignment with your values. And if you know that you're not in alignment in that moment, you could course correct. You can change behaviors. You can tell the person that may have been affected that you were unskillful, but the awareness about how you are aligning in your values. Are you walking your walk? Are you talking your talk? And mindfulness is the foundation of that, because in order to know if you're self-aware, you have to be able to bear witness to how you're being, how you're acting, how you're behaving, how you're speaking, how you're listening, how you're asking, everything.
To be a better person for yourself and for the others around you.
Yeah.
My next question, what is it that you'd like to see happening in the world around us, in business, in communications, in everything? What is your ideal vision for the world 10 years from now?
That's a great question. And I think it really ties into what I just said. And I think it would be that we would become a more conscious society, and that people would be self-aware so that they know how they are being in connection with other people. And if we can do that, then we will show up well for others and show up well for ourselves. And that, to me, would make a much better world, because it's all about how we show up in connection to other people.
And how we make business and how we create things together, the creativity aspect, the collaborative aspect. Now that the pandemic showed us so many ways we can do things differently, it is amazing. Before the lockdowns happened, I'm talking about humanity, business and all that, we used to call normal all the old ways of consumerism, business creation and interaction. But during the past couple of years, people, their rituals, their routines, their habits, their emotions, social and business structures, they were very, very deeply disturbed on many levels. Now, what new trends are you starting to identify as now we are moving forward?
That's a great question. It's interesting. I learned, from a personal perspective, the last couple of years, I became an artist. I know that sounds crazy, but I decided I wanted to learn how to draw, and now I'm doing custom pieces for people, and I never knew that I had that talent. So I think it's been a couple years of the opportunity, if people took it, to really get closer and closer to what they care about and what's important to them. And believe me, everybody else has talked about this, but it's given people the opportunity to focus on some really deeper values. It's helped people really get closer to who they are as an individual, what they like, what their preferences are. And my hope is that they will take that and continue on that trajectory, rather than things sort of morph back to normal and people go back to forgetting that everything that happened over the last couple of years and forgetting the things that were really of value and important to them. And I just hope we stay on this continuum, because I think when people develop personally in a way that is in alignment, it only helps to serve others.
And to change things and to make things different and fresher and more in line with nature and everything around us. Can you tell me a little bit more about the way you blast into an organization and changed everything? Come on, share with me. Share with me.
Oh gosh, as well, there's a couple different ways. When I teach the Rockstar Mindfulness, I basically walk in and people, if you use the word mindfulness, people think you're going to walk in there and say, okay, everybody, close your eyes and focus on your breath. And I am a meditator and I'm a closet woo-woo, but I'm also a former ultra marathoner. And I'm also a former software, software enterprise salesperson. And, to me, before I even understood what mindfulness was, I was like, yeah, tea drinking yogis, no thanks. This is not for me. But like I said, when I understood that it was about being a badass of your awareness and a driver of your awareness, then I was like, yeah, I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to bring this as an invitation to people that would ordinarily say, no way. We're not talking about mindfulness. I'm not going to focus on my breath. And I think it's weird and I don't want to do that. So one of the ways that I blast into a company is I blast some rock music, and I teach people what we're doing with our brains, with mindfulness, what we are doing with our awareness. And I'm sorry, but you'll have to hire me if you want to learn more about this process, but it absolutely gives people instant clarity about what this whole mindfulness thing is. And then I talk about why it matters and what happens to our bodies with stress and how we're interacting with each other. And I have a really experiential way of introducing people to it. And then in terms of I have another way to blast into an organization with either, my weird talk, or I call it, the key to belonging is individuality. And I use some really relevant stories about when I was in the corporate world and I was the weird girl in the corporate world, where I was judged and labeled weird. And my theory is we are all adults that can be, we're all kids dressed as adults sometimes. And when that moment happens, and it could happen every day, it could happen once in a while, but everybody has that moment where all of a sudden they feel like that insecure 12-year-old. And so I talk about that story, and I ask people, what was that moment for you when you were at work and all of a sudden you were an adult, a 12-year-old dressed as an adult? Because everybody can relate to that moment. So I don't know if that answered your question, but it's definitely a combination of a lot of different things. But the main thing is that shared experience that we all have.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. So, and of course, when you think from a business point of view for that organization, things will improve for them. They will become more successful as a whole organization, trusting each other.
But it's not a one and done. It is a practice.
Yes.
It is a process and a practice. You can't hire somebody like me to come in and do one sudden, all right, everybody, now you belong. And I do have to share one thing.
A magic wand.
No, how many times people say, you belong here, like in orientation or things like that, you belong here. Well, I'm sorry, just because you tell me that doesn't mean that I feel that. So what are you putting behind that statement? What are you putting behind that statement? Well, you've got to continually.
It is a long process, and it is a personal journey for everyone individually to become a collective. It would be so nice to see all that teaching and educating happening in the kindergartens.
Yeah. Individuality is seen so often as the thing that separates us. You're different, you don't look like me, this and that, and even it starts as kids. It's also obviously in organizations. I don't know if you ever, when's the last time, I know it's been a couple of years, walked into a company and everybody starts dressing the same. And it's not about the exterior really, but it is, how are we honoring individual perspective, preferences, and personalities? It's not about pink hair. It's not about piercings. It's not about tattoos. It's preferences, personalities, and perspectives. And so that is where embracing individuality and realizing that individuality is the greatest connection. It isn't what separates, it's the connection to each other.
Preferences, personalities, perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, so what is it that you're working on at the moment? What are you working towards? What is it that you want to achieve and happen for you in the next 5 years?
Okay, well, thank you for asking. I have an international TEDx coming out on December 15th. It's TEDx Sao Paulo Women. And I am doing a talk called What If Weird Isn't Weird? And I want it to go viral. My last name is Brown. I don't know if it'll be like Brene, and we're not related. And at least I don't know that we are, because I haven't done haven't really done that much research about it, but I do want it to go viral.
Brene.
Seriously, my goal is to amplify my message and work with as many organizations as possible. And I don't mean just standing up there and giving a keynote. I mean, like, really get in the trenches and work with organizations and teams so that they can get on that trajectory to really, really transform cultures. And I also am doing a little bit within academia and schools, because these are the future leaders. These are the future people that are entering the work world. So yeah, and I want to write another book, and the title of my next book, I already have it registered. It's called Bullshould. Bullshould is the space between where you are and where you think you should be, or where others are telling you you should be, act, or look like, that causes shame and suffering. It's bullshit. So that's the next book that I'm going to write.
I'm looking forward to it, but first I'm reading the Weird Girl Adventures. Yeah, the Weird Girl Adventures. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to your next book. Shelley, can I ask you to give our listeners and viewers for your 3 wisdoms?
Yes. So the first wisdom is that when we are present, we have the opportunity to make choices. So when we're present, we have the opportunity to make choices. And if you want me to expand on that, it's basically when we can, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So that's a quote. And when we have choice, then we can show up better. So presence equals choice equals showing up better.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The second one is we are all weird, different, weird, but weird. And by the way, I've interviewed a lot of people and asked them about their weird, and no one has ever said, sorry, can't help you, I'm not weird.
Yes, because the perception of the word weird is for something not normal, very different, incompatible.
Like I said, it's fantastic and extraordinary. It's not just odd and strange. So it's both, right? Yeah. So why not? Why isn't our weird extraordinary and fantastic?
Exactly. Thank you for this one.
You're welcome. And the third thing is that oftentimes the way that we the way that we judge ourselves or the things that we try to hide are the very same things that the people who love us are applauding about us, they're celebrating about us.
Thank you. We should learn and accept, embrace ourselves the way we are.
You know, I hope you don't mind me saying this. There's a space between not accepting and embracing. And it's hard to go from A to Z without going to B, C, D, E, F. And so when we don't accept something about ourselves, the idea that we have to go all the way to Z, embrace, sometimes that's just not accessible to people. So the word that I really like to invite people to use is allow, because allow is to permit. It's not resisting. And so I don't have to love everything about myself. I don't have to embrace everything about myself. I don't have to rock everything about myself. But if I allow it and permit it, it means I'm not resisting. That is that's a place of so much more ease.
Fantastic. Gosh, I can talk hours with you. Seriously. I thank you deeply for showing up in my tiny little space of empowering the conscious business evolution with me and our viewers. I'm grateful for your wisdom. Thank you.
I am honored, Antonina. Thank you. This was a wonderful conversation. It just felt very intimate and just flowed beautifully.
Thank you.
Authentically.
And let's give a noise to everyone. Let everyone hear more about you. Okay. Thank you. And that was your inspiration to continue empowering your conscious business evolution today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope our conversations will help you take your own steps toward innovating and evolving as a conscious business by making choices for the benefit of people, communities, and environment. If you have any questions to my guests, I will leave their contact details in the description of this post. If you'd like to come to the show and share your wisdom, you're more than welcome. Please write to me to Antonina at visionsinspire.com. But definitely have a listen to all previous interviews and do subscribe to the Visions Inspire YouTube channel for my next show for more inspiration on being part of our conscious business evolution together. Please give Visions Inspire your like on Facebook and follow on Twitter and Instagram. And you share with others to listen, spread the word, grow the knowledge. That's the spirit of the conscious business evolution. Till next time, from me, Antonina Manev, your business growth strategist, turning visions into profitable businesses, and always here to empower the conscious business evolution. Thank you, and till next time.